Communities in Boulder County are trying to rebuild 2 months after the Marshall Fire, but there's already a snag when it comes to removing debris. President Joe Biden is set to deliver his first State of the Union address. We know his main focus will be the economy and keeping prices low for American families.
What people will also hear from President Biden is his optimism and his belief in the resilience of the American people.
Colorado small businesses tell us what they want to hear from the president.
I do think there is some help need to be, whether it be like tax breaks, incentives that you can retain employees.
He uses his truck for business. He's like, I don't know how to get home.
Plus, a Colorado man flies out on vacation, landing to notice that his truck was stolen from a DIA parking lot. What the airport is doing to keep cars safe.
Those situations aren't ideal, and we don't want that to happen.
We've seen images of the destruction from the Marshall Fire for weeks now, but now there's been a setback in cleaning up all of that debris. Thanks so much for joining us for Denver 7 News at 11. I'm Jason Grenauer. The removal process was supposed to start today, but now that process is delayed. Denver 7's Christian Lopez is live in Louisville to explain what happened and what's going on.
Yeah, Jason, and debris removal is a very important part of the recovery process, but now because of several appeals, that process is getting pushed back. There have been at least 3 appeals that have been filed. One group recently filed a lawsuit claiming that Boulder County commissioners improperly held meetings to talk about the contract. This was filed by the group demanding integrity in government spending. They say this is a violation of the state's open meeting law, and they want to see records from those meetings. The lawsuit also says money for the cleanup process could be in jeopardy if FEMA doesn't follow the process correctly. Louisville's city manager talked about the delay during a city council meeting this morning.
This is the bigger comprehensive contract that we're talking about. And we're trying to schedule a meeting this afternoon to talk about the logistics.
Work is going to be delayed for at least 2 weeks, and we are going to have much more on this tonight at 5. Reporting live in Louisville this morning, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
Christian, thank you. Now, also on the Marshall Fire front, Louisville City Council will discuss potentially changing the city's building codes at its meeting tonight. People who lost their home in the fire want the city to temporarily suspend these new environmentally focused building codes. Those went into effect a month before the fire. Some people say the new codes will make it tens of thousands of dollars more expensive to rebuild. They want standards rolled back to 2018. Superior Mayor Clint Folsom will be honored at tonight's State of the Union. He'll be Congressman Joe Negus's virtual guest. Now, Negus says Folsom represents our country's resilience and recovery through his leadership after the Marshall Fire and during the pandemic. The federal government will be a key partner in Superior's rebuilding, including aid coming in from FEMA. President Joe Biden will give his first State of the Union address tonight. He's expected to mention the war in Ukraine, the pandemic, high inflation, and sagging poll numbers. M. Wynn reports on the president's message.
President Biden will deliver his first State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress tonight. Poised to overshadow his speech, Russia's ongoing invasion into Ukraine. As attacks escalate near the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, President Biden will call on the free world to support uplifting the core value of democracy.
This is a battle between the utility of democracies in the 21st century and autocracies. If you notice, you don't have Russia talking about communism anymore. It's about an autocracy. That's what's at stake here. We got to prove democracy works.
The economy will also take center stage, especially as gas prices and high inflation hamper the president's popularity. As Biden's approval rating slumped to 37%, according to a recent ABC News Washington Post poll, he's expected to lay out ways to improve the economy, including strengthening the supply chain and promoting competition to lower costs for families.
He's going to make clear that one of the best ways to lower costs over the long run is to increase the productive capacity of our economy.
The president also aiming to turn the page on COVID-19 as restrictions ease. This as the Capitol and the White House lifts its mask requirements this week. And security around the Capitol is tight. Fencing is back up ahead of tonight's speech and over concerns of potentially disruptive trucker convoys making their way to the Capitol.
Meantime, in a show of solidarity, several members of Congress say they will wear blue and yellow tonight, the national colors of Ukraine. M. Wynn, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
Businesses back home here in Colorado, as well as across the country, are recovering 2 years into the pandemic. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta spoke with two small businesses about what they want to hear from the president tonight.
Over the past 2 years, small business owners, they've really tried keeping their head above water. Some forced to close their doors for good, others keeping them open, but of course struggling every step of the way. Staffing shortages, supply chain issues, and of course those ever-changing COVID-19 mandates. These are all things that they had to deal with. And at one local Denver restaurant, they dealt with those as best they could, closing 2 days a week to make sure they could stay open the other 5 days. Employees telling us they are in a much better spot this time around, but they are still pushing to try to make it through every single day.
We are trying our hardest, and I hope the guests are able to see that. The main goal is for the guests not to worry about any supply chain issue or a labor shortage. We want to give the same experience and the same product, the same high-level product.
And it is a challenge every day at some of these local businesses. It was a similar struggle at a different spot in town, Sullivan's Scrap Kitchen. That restaurant opened its doors for the first time in July of 2020, so just a couple months into the pandemic. Yet the toughest time for that owner was spring of 2021, about a year or so ago. Staffing shortages, changing COVID regulations, those all really hurt him. This time around, he's in a much better spot.
I think we're definitely in a better position than we were, going into March of last year. Before then, we still didn't have indoor dining. We were still waiting on the vaccine mandates. But there's different challenges associated with that. I think most of us in the restaurant industry were just barely able to keep our heads above water all of last year, hoping that this year could be the time we actually got back on our feet.
So whether it is a small business employee or a small business owner, they say they want to hear the president address small businesses during his State of the Union address tonight. They say specifically they'd love to hear about any aid coming their way. We're in Denver. I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Well, coverage of President Biden's first State of the Union starts tonight at 7 right here on Denver 7. Then after the president's address, we will have 360 in-depth coverage and reaction on Denver 7 News at 10. The Biden administration is taking steps to help reduce gas prices and bring down energy costs. The U.S. is joining allies to release up to 60 million barrels of oil. Half of that will come from the U.S. Strategic Oil Reserve. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has caused gas prices to rise nearly 10 cents in the past week. Crude oil prices spiked 10% today, hitting $105 a barrel. That's the highest since 2014. Russia is the world's #2 producer of oil. Well, these are new photos showing a TV tower in Kyiv hit by military strikes, killing 5 people and leaving several others hurt. The U.S. is reporting Russia has fired more than 400 missiles in Ukraine since the invasion started last week. Ukraine's president is accusing Russia of war crimes, saying those strikes are hitting shopping malls and residential buildings. And new just within the last 15 minutes or so, Russian state media is reporting a new round of talks will happen with Ukraine tomorrow. As Rena Roy reports, Ukraine is asking for more help as Russian troops move in on major cities.
Explosions rocking Ukraine on yet another day of war. Russia targeting Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv, hitting its central square and civilian administration building with a huge strike. According to Ukrainian officials, killing several and injuring dozens more. Ukrainian President Zelensky saying Russia is committing war crimes by bombarding civilian areas. The Russian military denying those claims. The International Criminal Court says it will open an investigation.
Things are changing. The Russians are not caring anymore about civilian casualties. You look at that impact in the center of Kharkiv, that was a very deliberate action.
A senior administration official telling ABC the Russians will crush Ukraine as they seemingly escalate their attacks. Satellite photos show a Russian convoy stretching up to 40 miles long advancing on Kyiv.
They continue to want to move on Kyiv, to capture Kyiv, to take Kyiv. Although we don't know everything about this convoy, it is certainly in keeping with what we believe to be their intent with respect to the capital city.
The mayor of Kharkiv saying Russian troops are also now using airstrikes as they face stronger than expected resistance from the Ukrainians on the ground. Ukrainian and Russian negotiators meeting for talks at the Belarusian border Monday, failing to reach a ceasefire. It's unclear if they'll meet again. President Zelensky getting emotional as he addressed the European Parliament this morning, pleading for help as he seeks to have Ukraine accepted into the body.
And Russia is facing crippling sanctions. They're essentially cut off from the West, and the ruble continues to lose value against the dollar. But the Kremlin is staying defiant, a spokesman saying, "Go ahead and punish us. We are not scared." Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
What was supposed to be a stress-free vacation turned into a nightmare for a Littleton man. Scott Friedman had his truck stolen from the Pikes Peak lot out at DIA last week. It happened while he was flying to Hawaii. He got a call from Westminster Police telling him his car was stolen and seen driving erratically across the city. Now, Scott didn't want to go on camera, but his friends have this warning.
He's obviously upset, he's affected, it's an unfortunate thing, and we wanted, as I said, to support him, but also to make sure that this doesn't happen to other people.
DIA just told him to file a report when he got back, and I'm like, that's insane, especially as he's starting to realize what's in his car, his keys to his house.
Data from Denver police show car theft reports at the airport have more than doubled in the past 3 years. That includes parking and rental lots.
Those situations aren't ideal, and we don't want that to happen, and we don't want people to feel like they can't park in a dense public parking space.
Well, not too many answers there. DIA says it is working, though, with DPD to increase patrolling and recommend taking your valuables and keys with you. Well, still ahead, could Colorado say goodbye to daylight saving time? It's a topic lawmakers are considering today at the state capitol. Plus, Molson Coors is going green and saying goodbye to plastic.